It just happened. SpaceX and Elon Musk finally launched Starship to orbit. Welcome to TechZen. Let us tell you all the details. We have a decent probability of walking on the surface of Mars for the first time in human history. And it's all thanks to Elon Musk's unwavering determination. The billionaire is constructing the Starship, a massive spacecraft that will ferry volunteers across a huge distance between Earth and Mars. However, because the journey will take months in deep space, Musk's business SpaceX will need to develop a mechanism to safeguard the passengers from the effects of microgravity during the trip. This is why SpaceX has developed a Starship with artificial gravity. What is the nature of this spacecraft and how does it function? Come along with us as we investigate SpaceX's incredible artificial gravity Starship. Whether you think traveling to Mars is foolish or impossible, Musk is pressing on with his plans to transport humans from Earth to the Red Planet and dwell there permanently. This is the primary reason he is constructing the Starship, the most powerful space rocket ever created. It will be able to transport both people and freight. The Starship is one of a kind in various ways. It can lift more than 100 tons into orbit, which is required considering the large amount of supplies that must be transported ahead of the colonists. This will have measures in place to keep them alive. Remember that Mars is a harsh environment in which particular precautions must be taken. Musk must provide water, food, resources for building shelters, rocket fuel manufacturing apparatus, and everything else. The Starship is divided into two stages according to SpaceX's design. The lower stage or super heavy rocket will return to Earth at the time of separation, while the ship will continue to Mars after refueling in orbit. Both phases of the Starship are totally reusable to save money. When the booster lands, it is swiftly checked out and prepared for the next trip. Propulsion will be provided by around 30 Raptor engines. SpaceX conceived and developed the Raptor Engines. After each mission, the top stage will re-enter the Earth with heat-resistant tiles shielding it from being harmed by the heat created. SpaceX intends to build 1,000 of these Starships and launch at least 3 of them per day. Musk will be able to easily attain his target of 1 million people on Mars as a result of this. Of course, the Starship isn't designed solely for voyages to Mars. NASA intends to deploy the Starship on its future moon mission. The astronauts will be dropped on the moon's surface and then return to orbit once their missions are completed. The Starship is a cargo carrier with a relatively simple design. When the Starship is used to carry people, however, significant issues arise. SpaceX won't have to worry about this for shorter voyages such as to the moon because they will take many days. Traveling from Earth to Mars, on the other hand, takes months and exposes passengers to hazardous radiation due to the harsh environment through which the Starship must transit. However, this difficulty can be solved by equipping the Starship with shields. Gravity, on the other hand, is a difficult problem to solve. It's a problem even astronauts who aren't heading to Mars face because they must adhere to a stringent workout regimen while aboard the International Space Station. Returning astronauts are occasionally stretchered out of their spacecraft when they return from months-long trip, so this isn't always enough. You've probably seen movies with a narrative involving space travel. Most of the time, you'll see a large spacecraft on which the actors live or even battle and shoot at each other. However, the script hardly ever mentions gravity in the spacecraft. Travelers who survive whatever struggle they are involved in arrive at their destinations, embark, and walk away. Musk would love to have the luxury, but the real world isn't as forgiving as the movies. On the Starship, he needs to create some gravity. Here are the effects of microgravity on the human body as detailed by Nitsa Sittern, Chief of NASA's Space Medicine and Healthcare Systems Office, to fully comprehend the magnitude of the difficulty SpaceX faces when it comes to microgravity. Bone loss happens at a rate of 1 to 1.5% per month in microgravity, resulting in an acceleration of age-related changes akin to osteoporosis. Bone density and strength declines are more significant in certain skeletal locations, like as the pelvis, though much of the loss is reversible once the astronauts return to Earth. Long-term weightlessness raises the chances of kidney stones and bone fractures, both of which are linked to bone demineralization. Microgravity may also affect the capacity of bones to recover following fractures, according to research. Long periods of time spent in space have effect on muscles. Muscle mass, strength, and endurance are all declining, particularly in the lower limbs. Astronauts are at danger of tiredness and injury due to changes in muscle function, the impact of microgravity on connective tissues, and the demands of activities of varied intensities. The neurovestibular system, an integrated network of neural sensory, motor, and brain circuits, that allows humans to maintain balance, stable vision, and interpret body orientation in terms of location and direction, is similarly affected by microgravity. When astronauts return from long missions in microgravity, they frequently experience disorientation and a loss of neuromuscular coordination. Astronauts may have difficulty rising up, stabilizing their gaze, walking, and turning immediately after landing. Exercise helps astronauts retain fitness during extended trips by reducing major muscle atrophy, and they utilize a cycle ergometer and a treadmill with downward applied pressure to accomplish so. Scott Kelly, an astronaut, can vouch to these truths. After spending a year in space as part of NASA's twin study, he found it difficult to adjust to life on Earth, as documented in his book Endurance. Musk must ensure that the travelers to Mars are as healthy as possible if he wants the community to be self-sustaining. Otherwise, they will all die and his plot will fail miserably. While SpaceX is the first business to be confronted with the harsh effects of microgravity in actual rocket construction, it is not the first to try to overcome the problem. The proposal of Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who is regarded as one of the founding fathers of rocketry and astronautics, was one of the early examples of microgravity solutions. He proposed employing rotational forces to produce artificial gravity in space in a research titled Investigation of Outer Space Rocket Devices, released in 1903. Many versions of this design, including the von Braun wheel, the O'Neill cylinder, and the Stanford torus, have been proposed for space stations and habitats since then. Some designs, such as NASA's Nautilus X space station, which would employ a revolving torus to provide artificial gravity, or the Gateway Foundation's plan for a commercial space station, are being examined for development. However, each of these approaches has limitations that make them unworkable or incompatible with Musk's Starship. Some of them have unusual forms that will make launching challenging. Others are too hefty to be practical, while others will consume too much fuel. Small Stars on YouTube have a fantastic idea that will work perfectly with SpaceX's flagship spacecraft. It employs a 3-ship system that moves in tandem. A payload Starship is flanked on each side of a passenger Starship in this configuration. The wheel spokes are made up of a truss that unfolds and deploys robotically in the payload bay. Each Starship will be launched independently from the Earth, but once connected, the passenger ships will swivel around to realign themselves and use their thrusters to give the wheel some momentum. The passenger ships would rotate themselves to face inward towards the hub ship or the center payload Starship once enough velocity was achieved to replicate Earth normal gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared, or 1 g. The centripetal force caused by the spinning of the wheel would cause everyone aboard the passenger ships to feel as if they were being pushed down throughout the rest of the journey. The gravity-linked Starship concept provides a spin gravity that reuses the main engines, taps remaining fuel, and eliminates impractical space building and spacewalks. Small Stars explains of the design. The GLS is essentially a hub ship similar to a wheel's hub. The GLS's payload bay is filled with a truss that can robotically fold out and lock into place, serving as the wheel spokes instead of personnel and cargo. What velocity will SpaceX need to achieve on the Starship to imitate gravity on Earth? Small stars calculated that if the system is around 100 meters long in radius, it must achieve a rotating velocity of 31 meters per second using spin calculator. This will give you a 1G sensation and make 3 revolutions every minute. Small stars also determined that using this strategy to start and stop the spinning and prepare the starships for landing would consume the least amount of fuel. The tourists will still need to stick to stringent workout regimes, but they will have a higher chance of arriving on Mars in excellent health. In the comments area below, tell us how you think SpaceX will create gravity on the Starship as it travels to Mars. Thanks for watching this video. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe to this channel for more interesting content.